Xiao Qingji, if you still have a conscience, you should advance that retirement allowance first. My father is lying in the operating room. That is 2 lives at stake. Xiao Jingheng's eyes were bloodshot. The neckline of his military uniform stretched crookedly, and those eyes that were always filled with honesty and authority were at this moment spewing a furious anger called morality. I stood in the long, quiet corridor of the county hospital, looking down at the brand new retirement placement fund passbook in my hand, the ink-smelling 1,200 yuan. In 1985, when pork cost only a few cents per gene, this was a fortune that would make the whole village envious for a lifetime. In the past life, it was also at this payment window. I said nothing, bore the I trained through, and withdrew the entire life-saving sum I had risked my life to gain for the latter half of my life. I thought my wholehearted help would earn the Xiao family's gratitude, would earn Xiao Jingheng a higher regard for me. But what happened? My in-laws' lives were saved, and they immediately despised me for not having a son. That was the end. And Xiao Jingheng, with the wages I saved by frugality, every month without fail, sent 30 yuan to the Bess White Moonlight Qinwan in the neighboring village. He said, Qingji, her husband is gone. The child is still young. As fellow soldiers' families we should lend a hand. That pull dragged me all the way back to the day I finally gave out from overwork and died in the leaking old house. Xin Qingji, what are you spacing out about? Xiao Jingheng saw me silent and reached to snatch the bankbook from my hand. The director said if we pay now they can operate immediately, any later and it'll be too late. I turned to the side and, as if nothing, slipped the bankbook into my inner pocket so quickly Xiao Jingheng's hand came away empty. Xiao Jingheng, I won't give this money. My voice was flat, like a stagnant pool. What did you say? He froze, as if he'd heard an unbelievable joke. Those are your father and mother-in-law. You've been discharged now, you can find another job. But if you lose your life, it's gone for good. How can you be so cold-blooded? The corridor was full of family members waiting for consultations. Several odd looks were directed their way. Xiao Jingheng relished standing on that moral high ground. He was used to crushing me with righteousness. First, this money is the state-issued disability settlement paid to me personally, not marital property. I looked him straight in the eyes, my tone calm to the point of cruelty. Second, you're a company commander with a monthly salary of 62 bucks. I remember you've been in the service 8 years, aside from what you sent home. Where did the rest go? Your parents are gravely ill, and you, as their son, can't come up with surgery fees. Yet you ask me for my discharge pay. If that gets to your unit's political commissar, it won't sound good. Xiao Jingheng's face flushed the color of raw liver. He lowered his voice, urgent and angry. I spent my money on the right things. Qingji, now is not the time to argue about this. Please, I'm begging you, lend me the money. Fine, borrow. With what will you pay me back? I sneered. I knew where his money had gone. Qinwan's son needed school fees. Qinwan's mother-in-law needed medicine. And they even used Xiao Jingheng's regular salary to renovate Qinwan's roof. Qingji, you've changed. He looked at me with grief as if I were an unpardonable criminal. I have changed, I've learned to take care of myself. I turned away without looking at him again and walked straight toward the hospital entrance. He let out an angry roar from behind. Xin Qingji, if you leave today, don't think you'll ever set foot in this home again. I didn't stop. I actually walked faster. Home. The place that made me wash in cold water in winter to save coal. That fed me pickles every meal to support his other woman. Whoever wants to stay can stay. Just as I stepped out of the hospital gate, I saw Qinwan. She wore a floral dacron blouse, her hair in 2 braids, carrying an aluminum lunchbox, standing under the shade like a fragile willow in the breeze. When she saw me come out, a barely noticeable flurry of panic crossed her eyes. Then she switched to a weak, pitiable expression. Sister Qingji, Brother Jingheng, he's frantic too. If it's really hard for you, I've still saved up 5 kuai. She made a show of reaching into her pocket, the gesture exactly like a reasonable saint. I stopped, smiling without smiling as I looked at her. Qinwan, since you're so thoughtful, you can handle those 2 guys' big problem inside. After all, over the years half of Jingheng's salary has grown on you. If you're not going to sell your house or land to repay him now, why are you putting on this show of being generous with 5 kwai? Qin Wan's face went ashen in an instant. The lunchbox in her hand almost fell to the ground. I didn't wait for her to act. I stopped a donkey cart returning to town. Now I had to do the most important thing: transfer my household registration and connections out of the Xiao family completely. If Xiao Jingheng wants to be that saint who saves everyone, let him cut his own flesh to feed the eagles. As for that $1,200, I'm going to use it to make the biggest splash in this wave of reform and opening. The donkey cart jostled along the dirt road, wind on my face, and for the first time I felt my breathing so smooth. My parents-in-law's surgeries actually didn't need 1,000 yuan at all. Under current policy, with military-dependent reimbursement plus Xiao Jingheng's savings over the years, it would be more than enough as long as he was willing to cut off support to Qin Wan. But he couldn't bear to give up his reputation, nor his white moonlight. Then he would just have to watch with his own eyes how the so-called dignity he took pride in was ground down to dust. Bit by bit, back at the military housing compound, I went straight into the house. Everywhere in the house were traces of my life, but everywhere there was also a shabby, meager air to support Xiao Jingheng's heroism. I tore new clothes into bedding for my parents-in-law, sold the radio from my dowry to his father to buy ginseng. The calendar hanging on the wall was still the one distributed by the unit last New Year. It was already yellowing and curling at the edges. I dug out the military medals and certificate letters hidden under the cabinet and packed them up neatly. Just as I picked up the bundle, neighbor Zhang's wife poked her head in. "Qingji, where are you off to? I heard the old lady was hospitalized." Jingheng's beside himself. "Why are you taking things out now?" I dusted the bundle and smiled brightly. "Sister Zhang, Jingheng said he can stand tall on his own. I'm just answering the call. I'm going to support construction at the border trade station." Sister Zhang froze. In this era when women took pride in staying by their men's side, the place I was headed was an uninhabited zone men wouldn't dare tread lightly. But this is how I, Xin Qingji, should live my life. The cicadas in the courtyard were maddening. As I shouldered the bundle and stepped out, I happened to run into Xiao Jingheng, returning from the hospital. His forehead was drenched in sweat. His uniform stuck to his back, looking a little disheveled, and he clutched a payment receipt tightly in his hand. When he saw me carrying my luggage, the anxious look on his face was instantly ignited into anger. He took a few strides up to me and pressed down on my bag strap. "Xin Qingji, have you had enough of making a scene? My father's surgery is over and he's been saved, but there's still a huge sum needed for hospitalization and nutrition. You're picking this moment to lift your foot and leave. Do you want everyone in the compound to poke my back and say that Xiao Jingheng married an ungrateful wretch?" I looked at him calmly, even taking the time to straighten his crooked collar badge. "Captain Xiao, since your father's life was saved, that's a good thing. As for money, your 62 yuan monthly salary is already the top in this town, where the per capita income is around 30. If you just take back that special allowance, your father can drink bone broth every day." Xiao Jingheng's eyes darted guiltily for a moment. Then he adopted a self-righteous tone. "How many times have I told you? Qin Wan is a martyr's widow. Her man died saving me. The little money I send is repayment. It's a favor recognized by the organization. Using this to blackmail me. Don't you feel despicable? Repaying someone by feeding your own father thin porridge. Truly noble." I pushed his hand away, my tone sarcastic. "Since you think repayment is noble, let's settle the account. This is the certificate I just got from the regiment headquarters. I applied to be stationed at the northern border trade post, and because of my special status as someone transferring out, the organization has already approved it. Starting today, I will no longer be responsible for household expenses, and don't expect that transfer payment from me anymore." Xiao Jingheng stared at me as if he didn't recognize me, watching me for a long moment, then suddenly sneered. "Good, Xin Qingji, you've become ambitious. You think the border trading station is some place. It's a frozen wasteland with not even a proper toilet. You, a woman, could stay and live a peaceful life, but you insist on going to suffer. I'm telling you, once you walk out that gate, if you freeze and starve out there, don't come back crying to beg me. Don't worry, Suffering is the one thing I, Xin Qingji, am least afraid of in this life. I walked around him and headed toward the courtyard gate without looking back. I hadn't taken 2 steps when the postman, old Wang, came rushing in on his bicycle, skidding to a stop at the gate. Captain Xiao, perfect timing, there's an express letter for you and a remittance slip. I need you to sign the receipt. Xiao Jingheng took the envelope instinctively. He hadn't had time to open it when my peripheral vision caught the number on the remittance stub, 45 yuan. He only earned 62 yuan in total, and he gave 45 to Qin Wan. The remaining 17 yuan had to support himself and cover his hospitalized parents' meals and medical expenses. I stopped in my tracks, turned my back to him, and whispered softly, Xiao Jingheng, you really are a pillar of virtue and goodness. Xiao Jingheng jabbed as if stung by a needle, stuffing the remittance slip back into his pocket, and shouted in a furious, shamefaced tone, this is the last time. Qin Wan said her child needs surgery. I can't sit by and do nothing. Xin Qingji, do you have to be so sarcastic and sneering? I ignored his roar and headed straight for the shuttle waiting by the roadside. The wheels turned, and the low red brick houses of the compound slowly moved back. I sat by the window, opened my passbook. There lay quietly the 1,200 yuan. They are not paper. They are my capital to turn my luck in this era. Life at the border trade post was indeed as Xiao Jingheng said, bitter enough to peel your skin. But I have memory from a previous life, and I know what kind of era the border trade in the Soviet-Chinese frontier would welcome in the next 5 years. Those furs and woods that locals treated as junk would become gold when shipped to the south, while canned goods and thermos bottles unsold in the south would be hard cash here. In my first week at the border post, I didn't rush to unload goods. Instead, I rented 2 dilapidated warehouses with the worst foundation but the most stable ground at the entrance for 50 yuan. The director of the border post was an old smoker named Xiao. He looked at me, a delicate, pampered former female soldier, wrapped in a heavy sheepskin coat, shaking his head. Xiao Xin, if you waste your transition settlement here, you probably won't even hear a splash. It's chaotic here, and the folks on the other side are quick-tempered. Can you handle them? Director Zhao, if soldiers are afraid of chaos, then there would be no peaceful place in this world. I efficiently lit his cigarette, then handed him a bottle of good liquor I had brought from the county. I don't want a position. I only want the right to use those 2 warehouses and a legitimate trading license. For the next 2 weeks, I acted like a madman, hauling cargo in the snow by day with a crowd, and staying by the kerosene lamp at night to count the accounts. I gathered up all the beet pulp piled up by the military farms and the rejected scrap leather, none of it wanted by anyone. After half a month, the first batch of Soviet military coats and precision mechanical parts that had been swapped back filled the warehouse. It was that day that I received a letter sent from my hometown after passing through several hands. The letter was written by Sister Zheng from the staff housing compound. It said that Xiao Jingheng had pawned his only Meihua brand wristwatch to the pawnshop to scrape together the 45 yuan for his first love, and his father, unable to afford proper nutritional supplements, had a post-operative wound infection and could only lie on the hospital's hard plank bed, surviving each day by sipping thin gruel. Sister Zhang wrote at the end of the letter, sighing, Qingji, Jingheng, that child is probably gone mad. He still has to keep up the camp commander's face outside. I heard he's been eating a week's worth of 1-cent vegetarian dishes in the mess hall. Your in-laws look as though they're nothing but skin and bones now. It's really creepy to see. Come back when you have time and take a look. I finished reading the letter and casually tossed it into the blazing coal stove. The flames leaped up, and ashes of paper scattered. Going back. The show is just starting. That bowl of porridge. Xiao Jingheng must take the lead and drink it down. The edge trade station's wind slapped my face, like tiny knives cutting into flesh. I wore a thick sheepskin coat and stood on a snow-dusted, muddy loading yard, double-checking the thick stack of outbound orders in my hands. Manager Shin. This batch of KAMAZ truck axles from the Soviet Union totals 300 sets. All are fully stocked. Director Zhao exhaled a mouthful of white air, and his gaze at me changed from initial contempt to the current admiration. In just 3 months, The funds in my hands had multiplied more than tenfold from that initial 1,200 yuan. I used my status as a discharged soldier to obtain the hardest-to-get border trade permits, and relying on my precise anticipation of material shortages, I continuously transported the fabric and canned goods piled up in the south, exchanging them for these heavy machinery parts. Director Zhao, thank you for your hard work. I handed over a pack of hard-to-find filtered cigarettes. This shipment goes straight to the agricultural machinery repair factory in the provincial capital. The deposit has already been transferred. I'll return to the county personally to collect the remaining balance. You're going back? Director Zhao was momentarily taken aback, then lowered his voice. I heard your husband has been causing quite a stir in the military. The other day a passing soldier said Captain Xiao was questioned for embezzling public funds. Oh no. For borrowing a comrade's money and taking forever to pay it back. My hand pausing as I straightened my cuff. I said evenly, that's his private business and has nothing to do with me. I really should go back, not to see him, but because of that marriage tie that hasn't been fully severed, and to retrieve all the documents I should get back. The day I returned to the county town, the sky was overcast, and fine snowflakes were drifting. I took off the greasy sheepskin coat, put on a dark gray woolen coat, had my hair trimmed shorter, which made me look capable and stern. Driving the black SUV loaned by the repair shop, I parked directly at the gate of the residential compound. The environment here was as oppressive as ever. As soon as I got off the car, I heard a burst of violent coughing from the old house where my in-laws lived, accompanied by Xiao Jingheng's restrained roar. Qin Wan, I only have 5 yuan for living expenses this month. My father's antibiotics have been out for 2 days. How can you still ask me for money to buy shoes for the child at a time like this? Immediately afterward came Qin Wan's signature fragile voice. With a choked cry, Brother Jingheng, I'm sorry. I really didn't know Uncle was this sick. The other children have leather shoes, and I cried all night. I feel for him. This money, I don't want it anymore. You take it back and buy medicine for Uncle. Keep it. Xiao Jingheng's voice immediately softened, with a weariness of self-abandonment. I'll owe you something. I'll think of another way. I sneered and pushed open that rickety wooden door. The room was dimly lit, and a medicinal and moldy smell hit my nose after years of exposure. On the Kong, the once formidable mother-in-law who used to critique me in every manner was now under a gray, dusty quilt, with sunken cheeks, her thin, withered hands trembling as she held a chipped porcelain bowl. The bowl was clear to the bottom, with only a few dozen grains of rice floating on top, truly a sparse porridge. Grandfather-in-law lay on the other side, even more emaciated to the point of skin and bones, because he had been bedridden for a long time and unable to turn over. The room carried a nauseating stench of decay. Oh, you're all here. I stood at the door, the edge of my woolen coat brushing the door frame. The 3 people inside turned their heads simultaneously. Xiao Jingheng stood by the table, still gripping those few banknotes. In the moment he saw me, his expression shifted from surprise and shame to finally furious embarrassment, changing in a most spectacular way. Xin Qingji, how did you come back? He instinctively hid his hands behind his back, like a thief caught in the act. Qin Wanza screamed, and the 5 yuan in her hand dropped to the ground. She looked at the imposing jeep behind me, eyes filled with disbelief. Come back to grab something. I headed straight to the wardrobe, deftly rummaging for my household register and graduation certificate, and see how well Captain Zhao's proper money has taken care of the old folks. My mother-in-law seemed to see a lifeline, tears suddenly flooding her eyes, her voice hoarse as if sandpaper had scraped it. Qingji. Jingheng, he can't afford to buy me meat. Mom, why are you saying all this? Xiao Jingheng snapped, turning to me in anger. Qingji, don't stand there and laugh at me. I'm in trouble now, but I'm not dead. Why are you driving someone else's car back here to show off? You, a woman out there, might be doing something unsightly. This logic is exactly the same no matter past lives or present. I stopped what I was doing, turned around, took a receipt from the provincial agricultural machinery factory out of my pocket, and gently placed it on the table. This is the balance I just brought back. Xiao Jingheng, What I earned in these 3 months equals 10 years of your salary. I'm doing border trade that benefits the country and the people. Not like you. Doing that ruinous righteousness that destroys families. Qin Wan stared at the numbers on the receipt, her eyes nearly popping out. As for these 5 yuan, I stepped on the Mao tickets Qin Wan had dropped on the floor and pinched them hard. Qin Wan, leather shoes may look nice, but if you wear shoes bought with money taken from the dead, don't your feet feel hot when you walk? Qin Wan blanched and stepped back, weakly supporting herself on the corner of the table, tears bursting from her eyes. Brother Xingheng, I didn't mean, I really didn't know. Enough. Xiao Xingheng slammed the table, rattling the porcelain bowls and splashing the kanji all over the table. Xin Qingji, you think you're rich? Just because you're rich doesn't mean you can come back and humiliate people. You are my wife, and your money should be used for the family. Wife. I pulled out a divorce agreement I had prepared long ago from my bag and slapped it in front of him. Sign it, and we will be finished. Whether you become a living bodhisattva or a filial son in the future is up to you. But if you refuse to sign these 2 labels, embezzlement and illegal fundraising, I think your leader would be very interested to check. Xiao Xingheng's face went pale in an instant. He stared fixedly at the agreement, his hand trembling so much that he could barely hold the pen. The air in the room seemed to freeze, and only the mother-in-law's faint, thread-like moans lingered. Xiao Xingheng stared fixedly at the divorce agreement on the table, his eyes so bloodshot they looked ready to bleed. As if mortally humiliated, he crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it to the floor. Xin Qingji, you're using this to blackmail me. I knew it. You made a few dirty bucks outside and now your heart's gone wild, looking for an excuse to kick me out and climb higher. Right. Qin Wan twisted her handkerchief beside him, her voice thin and buzzing like a mosquito. Sister Qingji, Brother Xingheng pawned his watch to save uncle. How can you bring up divorce now? Isn't this the same as asking for his life? I watched the scene with cold eyes. In my past life, I was once moved by this kind of hypocritical, die together, performance and thought he was a man of deep loyalty. But now, I only felt disgust. Xiao Xingheng, don't make yourself sound so noble. I fumbled in my bag and took out a copy of the remittance stubs I had obtained from the town post office, laying it lightly on the table. These are all your remittance records for the past 3 months. You sent out a total of 135 yuan. And your father's surgery and hospital bill still owe the hospital a full 200 yuan. You'd rather have the nurses hounding for payment every day and your mother gnawing on cold steamed buns in the ward than send money to Qin Wan to buy shoes and repair a roof. Is that what you mean by taking your life? That stack of evidence felt like a sharp slap, leaving Xiao Xingheng speechless for a long while. He turned his head and looked at his emaciated mother on the Kong bed. The old woman seemed to understand something. She tremblingly reached out to grasp Xiao Xingheng's sleeve, her voice breaking to pieces. Xingheng, that money, it was for buying me medicine. How could you give it all to outsiders? Mom, it's not like that. Wanmei's family really is in trouble. Xiao Xingheng's defense sounded pale and powerless. Enough. I cut him off. I prepared 3 copies of the agreement. You tore one up. So there are 2 left. Xiao Xingheng, you should know. If I can find the remittance slip, I can trace those invoices you had falsified in logistics to get money for Qin Wan. Do you want to keep your face? Or do you want this marriage in name only? It was as if the firmness in Xiao Xingheng's spine had been pulled away in an instant. He slumped down onto the wobbling wooden stool. Reputation and future were the things he valued most in life, and I was now squeezing his fatal weakness. Xin Qingji, you're ruthless, he ground out, teeth clenched, trembling as he picked up the pen that had fallen under the table. Compared to the years you left me to fend for myself, what is this? I said evenly, without any pleasure in revenge. Only a refreshing sense of release. The moment he put pen to paper, Qin Wan suddenly lunged forward, grabbed his arm and cried out, Xingheng Ji, you can't sign. If you get a divorce, your reputation will be ruined. What will everyone think of me? I looked at Qin Wan's hypocritical face and slapped her hand away. The sharp sound was unusually loud in the small room. Qin Wan, you have no say here. If you're really worried about his reputation, Then right now spit out the money you swallowed and go to the hospital to cover the medical bills. If you can't do that, shut your mouth full of sanctimony. Qin Wan covered her face, looked at me in terror, and didn't dare make a sound anymore. Xiao Jingheng closed his eyes and signed those two twisted characters on the agreement. I folded the agreement away, my movements crisp and decisive, like gathering spoils on a battlefield. Meet me at the Civil Affairs office at 2 in the afternoon. Bring your officer ID and your household registration book. I pushed open the door. The winter wind rushed in, scattering the nauseating smell of thin porridge that had filled the room. As I walked out of the yard, I heard Xiao Jingheng's suppressed, breaking sobs behind me. He knelt by the old man's Kong, finally realizing something, slapping himself like a madman. Mom, it's my fault. I'm such a bastard. I've wronged you. The cries were piercing, but I felt not the slightest ripple in my heart. Belated affection and guilt are more worthless than grass. I climbed into the black Jeep and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, that dilapidated staff compound grew smaller and smaller. I knew Xiao Jingheng's nightmare had only just begun. Without my separation pay, without my monthly salary subsidy, the little money he had left simply wouldn't plug the holes in the hospital bills. And Qin Wan, who worshipped money and only wanted a long-term meal ticket, what would she do when she discovered Xiao Jingheng not only had no money but was saddled with debt that was a reckoning for them to settle? And I was heading to greet the era of my 10,000 taels of gold. The red flag at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau flapped loudly in the strong wind. Xiao Jingheng clutched the divorce certificate he had just exchanged, his whole being seemingly drained of spirit. Xin Qingji, are you really leaving me no room at all? His voice was hoarse, and his eyes held a faint, unrealistic hope, as if my softening toward him could be triggered by this pathetic display. I carefully put my copy of the divorce certificate into my briefcase without giving him a second glance. Captain Xiao, since it's over between us, spare me the staged lines. Your father is still bedridden, and Qin Wan is waiting at your house. Your consideration should be for them. I started the Jeep. The roar of the engine drowned out his sigh. I went straight to the county's foreign trade company. Manager Wang here had been anxiously waiting for me. The batch of Soviet truck bearings I had brought back from the border trade station some time ago happened to be urgently needed by the county's machinery factory. Once this deal went through, the money in my account would no longer be merely my resettlement allowance, but the surging original capital. Manager Shin, you really have a knack for this. As soon as this batch arrived, the old masters at the machinery factory were overjoyed. Here's the balance payment, count it. Manager Wang handed me a heavy envelope. I pulled out a few bills to check, then casually asked, Manager Wang, I heard the county hospital has been pressing for payments lately. Manager Wang, an old fox, chuckled. You mean you? Oh, no. You mean Captain Zhao's family. Right. It's quite a stir. I heard Captain Xiao has borrowed from all his comrades. Even the regimental headquarters has taken notice. But he'd given all his previous wages to that widow surnamed Qin. Now the inpatient department refuses to dispense medicine, saying the arrears are close to 500. Just now, I even saw Qin Wan arguing with someone at the hospital entrance. I thanked them and drove past the hospital. Just then I saw Qin Wan. She was blocked by two fierce and intimidating men by the roadside. Qin Wan, don't say those useless things. Your man borrowed money from your family to fix the house, and it was agreed to be repaid in 3 months. But it's been half a year already. Since he has no money, you pawn this watch. One of the men suddenly grabbed Qin Wan's wrist. That was Xiao Jingheng's plum blossom watch. Qin Wan cried, tears streaming down her face, struggling desperately. This isn't mine. This is the watch that Jingheng Ji pawned and redeemed. Let me go. I pulled the car over, rolled down the window, and met Qin Wan's terrified, jealous gaze. She looked at the Jeep beneath me, at my well-tailored wool coat, and the malice in her eyes was barely concealed. Isn't that Xin Qingji? One man blocking Qin Wan recognized me. Manager Shin, I heard you've separated from Captain Xiao. Perfect. This Qin Wan owes us money. Since he's gone, what does his debt have to do with me? I pulled out a brand new large denomination note from my bag and threw it onto the ground. The wind blew, and the banknotes rolled across the snow. Qin Wan seemed to go mad and lunged forward to grab the 10 yuan. Qin Wan, this 10 yuan counts as my reward to you. After all, you managed to drive a regimental commander to a bare home. Make his parents drink porridge, you're quite capable. Save it well. The days ahead are long. I rolled up the car window and drove away dust-free. In the rearview mirror, Qin Wan knelt on the snow, clutching that banknote with all her strength. Those two debt collectors were cursing as they pressed her to hand over the watch. She had once believed that relying on fragile gentleness could manipulate Xiao Jingheng for life, but she forgot that once a man is bled dry by her, that so-called heroic spirit of his becomes worthless in the face of hunger and debt. Back at the county guest house, I received a call from Director Zhao, Manager Shin. A batch of hard goods just arrived at the border trade station. Check wood processing equipment. Someone wants to swap for our canned goods and white liquor. Bring the goods over and we can do a big deal. Okay, I'll leave first thing tomorrow. After hanging up, I stood by the window, watching the dim lights along the county streets. In this life, my battlefield is out in the vast north, among those rumbling heavy machines, in every hard-earned coin of real money. As for Xiao Jingheng, he'll stay with his parents who are dying of illness. Cling to that parasitic white moon of his, and slowly drain whatever laughable pride he has amid endless quarrels, debt collection, and cheap gruel. I dug out the only photo of Xiao Jingheng and me from my bag, the one taken at our wedding. I didn't tear it up. I casually tossed it into the inn's trash can. Trash should stay where trash belongs. 6 months later, I drove that brand new Santana bearing a provincial capital license plate back to the town where the residential compound is located. This time, I came back as a partner of a provincial foreign trade company to discuss equipment introduction for the reform of the county mechanical plant. Even before entering the town, I saw a familiar figure by the roadside. Xiao Jingheng was wearing an old army uniform that had been washed white, with a crooked patch on the shoulder, trying hard to push a dilapidated tricycle, its cargo bed filled with a few sacks of withered potatoes. He has left the army. I heard from Director Zhao that because a family debt dispute escalated to the regiment headquarters, and because he had previously been publicly reported for helping Qin Wan improperly withdraw allowances, he ultimately couldn't keep his uniform. He only received a meager severance and went back to his hometown with his belongings. The car window went down. I put on sunglasses and showed no intention of slowing. Xin Qingji. Xiao Jingheng suddenly slammed on the brake. He braked so hard the tricycle skidded on the dirt road, and a few potatoes rolled into the muddy water. He stared at me dumbfounded, at my small car worth over 100,000, then at his own hands chapped and caked with mud. That face that once brimmed with vigor was now creased with worries, like an old man crushed by life. Comrade Xiao. Long time no see. I nodded lightly, my tone like that of someone making polite small talk with a stranger. Qingji, my father is gone. He lowered his head, his voice so hoarse it was unnatural. My mother is paralyzed. She's lying inside now. Qin Wan. Qin Wan took the rest of the money and ran off to work down south as a transport laborer. I didn't show any surprise or sympathy. The logic was simple. Qin Wan was a vine that clung to the strong. Once the big tree that was Xiao Jingheng withered, it was only a matter of time before she sought a new host. That's your family matter. You don't need to report it to me. I started the engine. Can you lend me 50 kwai? He suddenly rushed over, grabbed my car window, his eyes full of despair and humiliation. My mother wants a sip of meat broth. I can't sell these potatoes. The pharmacy still owes me money. I pulled a promissory note from the briefcase on the front passenger seat. It was the money he had asked me for to help pay for Qin Wan's wedding, and I had kept it ever since. Xiao Jingheng, this shows you owe me a total of 280 yuan. Pay this back first. Then we can talk about the word borrow. He looked at the promissory note, slowly let go of the car door, and slid down onto the muddy ground as if paralyzed. I didn't look at him again. The car wheels passed over the puddle in front of him, splashing up a spray of mud. After finishing my official business and leaving the county town, I made a point of going to the cemetery, not to visit anyone. but to set that divorce certificate and some old miscellaneous things ablaze on a patch of open ground. Now I hold the exclusive distributorship for the border trade post and own an office building in the provincial capital. Every future morning I will hustle for my commercial empire. As for Xiao Jingheng, he will remain in that old house filled with the smell of medicine and thin porridge, day after day caring for his paralyzed mother, spending the rest of his life in remorse and poverty. This was the righteousness he wanted, and I granted it to him. The flames reddened the corners of my eyes. I turned and strode toward the Santana waiting for me. The wind came from the north, carrying a fresh, liberating scent. In this promising era, Shinqingji's life was only just beginning its most glorious chapter.